Well, hello everyone. Welcome to our webinar on what to do with immigration when you graduate. I'm very happy to be here today with Zia, who is from our firm, Mangalji. Zia, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi everyone, like Elizabeth said, my name is Zia. I'm excited to be here with you today as well. And I'm looking forward to the webinar.
And I'm very excited as well to be with our partners, IDP, who are partnering with us for this webinar. Michelle and Monica are here as well from IDP, and they're going to tell you all about IELTS, how to do IELTS and improve your IELTS scores, and also looking for programs as well if you're interested in doing that. Hi, guys.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for being here today.
So, first of all, today, what we're going to be talking about is, what you're going to need to do when you're on your study permit. And then as you transition on to your work permit, what do you need to do to apply for your work permit? And then afterwards, how do you make sure that you have all of the conditions that you need in order to qualify for permanent residence? So let's talk first about studying and working on a study permit. First of all, if you have your study permit and that's all you have to make sure that you keep your student status. Even if your study permit is still valid, you lose your status within 90 days if you stop actively pursuing your studies. So that means that you have to attend classes except during scheduled breaks and authorized leave. Now, during COVID times, you still have to maintain your status. If your school has a scheduled break and they've suspended classes, then that could be a break. If not, then you have to continue to attend classes. If your study permit is going to expire during this time, you still always need to submit your application before it expires. If you submit your application before it expires to extend your study permit, then you can stay in Canada and wait until the decision is made. If you don't, then you will lose your status and you can't study. You have 90 days to file restoration of status after you've lost your status, but until that restoration of status is approved, you won't be able to study. So very important, even during COVID times, the offices are still open, you're still able to submit online applications, and therefore you must in order to make sure you maintain your status. Okay, now, one of the things that is very important to know is when you can work legally while you are studying. So you can work only if you are a full-time student, except in your last semester, you can work if you are a part-time student. That's a special exception for the last semester. But any of the other times, you have to be a full-time student in order to work. That includes when you've completed your studies. When you've completed your studies, a lot of people think, oh, that's a scheduled break. No, it's not counted as a scheduled break. When you complete your studies, even if you don't have your degree in hand, even if you've just gotten a letter from the school saying you've completed your studies, at that point, you are no longer a student and you have to stop studying. Okay, the only time that there's an exception is if you're going to do another program. If you're going to do another program and you've already been accepted to that program, then if there is a semester in between, if it's less than 150 days, you can work full-time during that time in between the programs. Okay, now, during COVID-19, we are not sure yet. We have not yet had a stated policy from IRCC as to whether or not, if your classes are suspended, if you're allowed to work full-time. So until they actually say that, our advice to you would be to work part-time only. Okay. Now let's talk about post-grad work permits. First of all, before you apply for the post-grad work permit, you have to know whether or not you should apply for the post-grad work permit, because you only get one post-grad work permit in your lifetime. And this work permit is a golden ticket. You only get one golden ticket in your lifetime. Why is it a golden ticket? It's because it's an open work permit. You can get it quite easily. You just finish your program and you can qualify for it. To get other work permits, such as LMIA-based work permits, you would have to find an employer who is able to offer you a job and can show that they can't find a Canadian to do the job. It's very difficult oftentimes to get other work permits. So make sure you don't waste that opportunity. And the reason why I say that is because the length of your postgrad will coincide with the length of your program. If you only have a one-year program, you'll get a one-year work permit. Now that may or may not be enough for you to qualify for permanent residence, okay? So we will be talking about permanent residence later on, and you'll need to see that it's kind of like a puzzle, whether or not you will have enough to qualify for permanent residence if you only have a short post-grad work permit. Now you can combine your programs. So if you've done 1 year of a program and you say, oh, well, maybe 1 year work permit is not enough, you can combine, you can do another 1 year program, and the length of those two programs combined, if it's 2 years, then you'll get a 3-year work permit. Okay, and IDP, they're wonderful at helping you find programs, so they're going to be speaking more about that during their presentation. Now, you must have also maintained full-time status during every semester of your programs. IRCC is getting to be very, very big sticklers about this. It used to be that you didn't have to submit your grades or your transcripts, and you just showed a letter from the school or even just your degree, and that was enough. No longer. They are asking for transcripts because they want to see whether or not you were a full-time student during every semester of your program except the last program. You can also have gotten leave where you didn't attend any class if the school gave you that leave, and that would have been only for one semester under 150 days, okay? But other than that, you have to be a full-time student. Now, if it is that you have an exceptional circumstance where you just couldn't do it for one semester, IRCC sometimes does accept some reasons, okay? But that is at the discretion of the officers. So if you had a choice, you may want to, and you just can't do the full time, you may consider taking an authorized leave instead of just doing a part-time studies. Now, the normal rule is that if your program comprises of over 50% of distance education, then you will not qualify for a post-grad work permit. However, IRCC has stated in a tweet that there will be exceptions made if students need to do online courses due to COVID. Now, here's the thing. Remember when I said you have to stop working when you finished your program? Well, you can work again as soon as you apply for your postgrad. Okay, so even if you don't have the post-grad in hand, and because of COVID, it might take a while for your work permit to be processed, and that's okay, all right? Because you can start working as soon as you apply for your post-grad. If your study permit is still valid and it's within 90 days of completion of your program. You're technically able to apply for your postgrad within 180 days. However, you do lose your student status after 90 days, remember. So in order to work as soon as you apply for your postgrad work permit, you should be doing so within 90 days of completion of your program. And during COVID-19 times, the IRCC has advised that you are not to flagpole right now. Go to the border and make a turnaround just to apply for your work permit. So you should be applying for this online. Okay, let's talk a little bit about what to do about getting permanent residence. Now, a lot of you would have probably already known about express entry. So express entry is the system for permanent residence where it's a two-step process. So first of all, you have to create an online profile, and you qualify for an online program, the online profile by qualifying under one of the categories: Federal Skilled Worker class, Canadian Experience class, and Federal Skilled Trades. Once you qualify, you can enter into the express entry pool, and you'll get a series of points based on your background. Now, every 2 weeks or so, the government has a draw where they announce a number for certain categories. It used to be that normally they announce it for all categories, but in the last draw, they had a special score just for Canadian Experience class applicants, okay? Now, if your score, and you belong to that category, and your score is above the score that they have announced, then you'll receive an invitation to apply. And it's only then that you can actually submit your application and apply for your permanent residence. When you're in the pool, a lot of people think that you've applied, but you haven't applied yet. You've just sort of entered into a pool. It's only when you get the ITA, the invitation to apply, that you can actually apply. So let's first talk about how to enter and qualify for express entry. The first one is a category where you don't actually need to have Canadian work experience. You can have work experience from outside of the country. You don't actually have to be in the country in order to get the work experience. But the work experience that you have to have has to be high skilled, full-time, which is 30 hours a week, a continuous work in one occupation. And it has to be at least for 1 year, okay? Once you have that work experience, you'll need to also pass your language exam just to get into the pool. For the Federal Skilled Worker class, you'll need to get a CLB of 7, which is a 6.0 in each category for the IELTS. And then there is, you'll get a score based on your background, and you'll have to meet a skilled worker score, Federal Skilled Worker score of 67. And you'll also need to have a certain amount of savings in order to be qualified under this category, okay? The second category that you can qualify for is the Canadian Experience class. Now, this category, the work experience, is very different from the first category. In this category, the work experience that you have to have is work experience that you've obtained not when you're a full-time student. So this is after you finish your program. But remember, you can start working as soon as you have applied for the work permit. And so that work experience for this one starts counting even if you don't have your work permit, but you can legally work because you've applied for your work permit. You can start accumulating the hours then. So you don't need to wait to get your work permit in order to start working, okay? It's legal, high-skilled work experience in Canada. You have to be employed. You have to get that T4 from your employer, okay? If you don't get that T4, it could be very difficult to prove that you are an employee, okay? So no self-employment for this class, okay? And then it has to be at least for 1 year with 30 hours a week, so totaling 1,560 hours. It does not have to be in one occupation. It does not have to be related to your area of study, okay? Any high-skilled work experience in Canada. You do have to pass the language exam. For the most part, you're looking at least 6.0 for NOC O and A, and slightly lower, CLB of 5 for NOC B. But really, you know, for the language, we're looking at higher language results right now to get out of the pool. These are just language results to get into the pool. There's also a skilled trades class, and those are for people who have work experience and either an LMIA or provincial certification in that particular trade. So this is for very specialized occupations in the trades. So let's say that you have a score and you know there are other people also in there, right? And so every 2 weeks or so, the government will announce a draw where they will announce a number. So last draw was for 467 for a Canadian experience class, okay? So if it's 467, who's gonna get drawn? Who's gonna get an invitation to apply? Well, probably Troop T. But I say probably Troop T because if Troop T was under the Canadian experience class, she would get an invitation to apply. But if she entered and qualified under the skilled worker class, she wouldn't have gotten an invitation to apply. Okay, so if you can imagine this pool with hundreds of thousands of people in the pool, they're going to basically invite a certain amount of people every draw. Normally it's been around 3,000 to 4,000 people. Okay, so essentially that is where you know why is it that the numbers are higher and you know or lower? It's essentially who else is in the pool. Okay, so how do you get your number for the express entry? Well, here's the criteria. First of all, age. Not a lot you can do about age except apply when you are as young as possible. Apply early, because after the age of 30, your points do drop every time you get older by 5 or 6 points. And then in your 40s is a fast slide down, -10, -11. And only when you get to 45 that, you know, good news is it doesn't go down anymore, but bad news is it's a 0, okay? So not a lot you can do about age, but you have to apply earlier. The earlier, the better. Education, if you have at least 2 degrees, where one of the degrees is at least a 3-year program, that will give you a big boost up. Language I find is the separator for a lot of people. You know, especially when the scores are so high, your IELTS score can be you know, the difference between you being able to qualify with what you have or you having to do another degree or get another year of work experience, or probably never qualifying. So this is one of the reasons I'm so happy to have IDP here to tell you guys how to raise your scores on your IELTS, because this is something that most applicants, if you're going through express entry, this is one of the main worries. Can you get your IELTS to that score that you need? And then relevant Canadian work experience is also there. It is also quite important. The work experience that we're talking about here is the same as the work experience I described in the Canadian experience class, except it's instead of within 3 years, it's counted within the last 10 years of application. Foreign work experience, high-skilled work experience can also count. Your spouse's education, language, or Canadian work experience can contribute. We're going to talk about provincial nominee programs where they're express entry based. If you are able to get through one of those programs, you get 600 additional points. Previous study in Canada is good, so you guys who are students, that will help you a lot. Arranged employment. Now, often students think, oh, well, if I have a job offer, I have arranged employment, right? No, if you have an open work permit, you don't qualify for the arranged employment points. So with a post-grad, you actually don't qualify for the arranged employment points. It has to be with an employer-specific work permit or LMIA for arranged employment. If you have siblings who are Canadians or permanent residents in Canada, you get a few points for that. Ability to speak fluent French, that will help you a lot as well, okay? And trade certification for people in the trades. So let's talk a little bit about provincial nominee programs. I'm going to be talking about Ontario's express entry streams, but every province they all I believe most of them will have the express entry stream linked provincial nominee programs as well. So in Ontario, in order to apply for the express entry stream, you have to be first in the express entry pool, and the government has to like you enough to give you an expression of interest. So you can't just apply directly to be in the to the OINP provincial nominee programs. Some of the other provinces you can apply directly. In Ontario, you cannot. So here are some of the categories why the government might be interested in giving you an expression of interest if you are in the pool. The first one is the human capital stream. So this one is one where it's not clearly defined as to who they invite. They have stated that they like people in the IT industry, and they have a special tech draws where they draw for people who have occupations and work experience in the tech sector. They have also said that they might invite people who have job offers or other certain occupations that are in need. Now, in order to qualify for this, you must have had a bachelor's degree or higher. A college degree will not suffice for this. They also have skilled trades draws. So if you have at least 1 year of work experience in Ontario in one of the specified trades, so a lot of construction trades and chefs, cooks unfortunately are not included in that, but chefs and bakers are. And so if you have 1 year of work experience in Ontario in one of the specified trades in the past 2 years, and you are in the express entry system, they may send you an expression of interest, and then you can apply with them. French speakers as well. If you can pass your TEF, and get a CLB level of 7 in French, and you also have to do your IELTS and get 6 in your IELTS, and you have a bachelor's degree or more, then you could also get an expression of interest as well. So what we have seen in the past year is that Ontario invites not only people who have who meet the criteria, but they are also looking at people whose scores are at a certain level as well. Maybe not as high as the federal draws, but you still have to have it at a certain level. So, your IELTS scores, your work experience, etc., still do matter. Okay. So if you are invited to OINP and you can get through it, and you apply and you're successful, you will get 600 points that's added to your score for express entry. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about programs that are not express entry. Now, the Ontario program has some good employer-based programs. And how they work is, first you have to have a job offer from an employer that qualifies. So if your employer is inside the GTA, then you have to have a gross income of at least 1 million. The employer has to have a gross income of at least 1 million. They have to have at least 5 full-time Canadian or permanent resident employees in that location that you're working at. They have to be in business for 3 years. If your employer is outside of GTA, gross income of 500,000, 3 full-time Canadian permanent resident employees in that location, and be in business for 3 years. The job offer that they offer you has to be full-time and permanent. Okay, so this is the basis of the employer-based. But beyond that, there are 3 different categories within this particular stream. First of all, for international students, if your job is high-skilled, your salary only needs to meet entry wage level. Okay, so that's a lot easier to find a job that way than if it has to meet median wage level. So entry wage level for your occupation, you can apply. Okay, now that's it. You don't have to do any English or French tests. You don't have to have a certain education other than have graduated with in Canada, okay, with a 2-year program or a 1-year postgraduate program in Canada, okay? And you have to apply within 2 years of graduation. If you don't apply within 2 years of graduation, then you could apply under the skilled worker one, the one for skilled workers, but your salary needs to meet median wage then, and you can only apply if you have 2 years of work experience in that occupation. So for a lot of you guys, look into and if you can get a job offer where the employer meets that criteria, the international student class might be good for you. Now, the only caveat in this is there are a lot of people now who want to apply for this because express entry points are so high. And it went a little bit nuts, basically, this year. Normally, these programs are open for many months, and, we can have some time to get a spot and apply. Once you create a profile, you have 14 days to submit your application. This year, though, somehow there was just a whole bunch of people applying, and the program closed very fast after it opened, within a few minutes, really. So the Ontario government, stay tuned. We'll let you know. They're doing some thinking, and they're going to decide on what to do about their programs in order to make it fair and allow people to apply properly. But it may open again this year, especially for people under the skilled worker one. Not sure about the international student, but that remains to be seen. Okay, there's one more, and that one is open right now, are people who are in the in-demand stream. Now, this is one of the only streams where the person doesn't have to have a high-skilled job, but the job has to be on a list, a stated list. And so some of the occupations on there are things like construction laborer, truck driver, personal support worker, or nurse's aide, I mean, in nursing facilities, etc. Okay, and so in order to qualify, you have to have 9 months of work experience in Ontario in that occupation in the last, and also meet the median wage. So we also have in Ontario the master's and PhD stream. So you have to have graduated from a master's or PhD in Ontario, no job offer, minimum savings for master's, okay? And you can only apply when the program is open. So master's programs were open and closed really, really fast in the past few years because so many people were applying. PhD stream is a little bit better. That tends to be open for much longer. But if you are lucky enough to get a spot, you do have to be ready with your English or French results, okay? So if you want to do the master's, I wouldn't suggest that you only decide to do your IELTS after you can get a spot, because you have to submit your application within 14 days, okay? So if this is something that you want to do, you might want to do your IELTS before. One last program that people who, especially if you are in the personal support worker or ECE programs, you might consider doing, that's the Caregiver Program. So essentially, to qualify for this, you have to have 24 months of full-time work experience in Canada, caring for children, elderly, or disabled person in their home. Okay, so it's not at a daycare, it's not necessarily at a nursing home. You have to care for people in their own home. Okay, you need to have a 1-year post-secondary education credential, meet the language benchmark of 5, and that's it. Okay, so essentially, the Caregiver Program is one of those programs. It's occupation specific, but it could be something to think about. Okay, so let's talk about next steps. What should you do now? First of all, one of the most important things you need to do is know what you need to do. Okay, you have to have a plan as to how to get to your goals. What kind of job do you need? When should you apply? What kind of education do you need? What kind of English scores do you need to have, or French scores do you need to have? Okay, we're happy to meet with you afterwards. If you'd like to schedule a consultation with us, we can create a plan for you. Okay. Second, after you have your plan, you need to do what you need to do to get there, right? Some of the things that you might need to do is study, take practice exams for the IELTS. You need to make sure you have the education programs that you need. Make sure you have enough time on your work permit to get the Canadian work experience. So you don't necessarily just apply for your postgrad, especially if it's just a 1-year postgrad, right? Make sure you have enough time on your work permit to get what you need to do to get your permanent residence, okay? Make sure you stay in status. I can't emphasize this enough, okay? Make sure that you don't work illegally, that you apply for your work permit within 90 days, because after 90 days, you lose your student status and you'll have to apply for restoration of status, okay? But do what you need to do in order to If your study permit is going to expire earlier, then go and extend your study permit. Okay, you can't say COVID. You can still apply. Okay, it's not an excuse for you not to apply to extend your status. Okay. If your application is rejected, and we have seen a lot of students, even with post-grad work permits, where it's supposed to be very simple, have them rejected because of oftentimes something really stupid. You didn't press a button to submit a document, or you didn't realize that you needed to submit something and it was rejected. You need to contact a lawyer right away. Okay, first of all, if it is something where it's the immigration's fault, then you can file a judicial review of the application. But the notice period is very short. The deadline is 15 days from the date that you receive your rejection letter. Okay, you don't get extensions now. Right now, during COVID times, the courts are giving some leeway for that. But still, there are certain protocols, there are certain requirements. Make sure you contact a lawyer right away so you can be sure that if you want it, if you need it to go to federal court, you can. Okay. Oftentimes, when people get a rejection, they might call the call center and they might say, oh, just send a letter to immigration. Okay. Now, every time, if you do that, it is considered that you're asking for reconsideration. And IRCC, they don't like to consider more than one reconsiderations. I've had people who've sent a letter themselves and it was rejected, but they didn't really explain themselves very well. And I've tried later on to send another letter, for reconsideration based on what, with my legal submissions, but the officers won't even look at it because they say, oh, that person already had a kick at the can at a reconsideration. So, be very careful. Don't just send a letter just because the call center tells you to go send a letter. Okay. Also, you may need to file a restoration of status. If it's beyond 90 days, you lose your student status, and then it's not just enough to make another application for a work permit. You may need to file a restoration of status as well. Okay, so if that happens, knock on wood, it won't happen, but if your application is rejected, make sure you contact a lawyer. Okay, guys, this is all I have for my presentation. If you have any questions, we have our information there. We're also doing a lot of updates, especially with the current situation on our social media. So feel free to find us there. We also have a COVID-19 update page here where we go on it every day and update new information as we know it. And Zia, are you there?
Hi, Elizabeth. Yes, I'm still here.
Yes, great. So shall we go through some questions?
For sure. So we've gotten some great questions.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a couple of them ready that we've been getting a little bit from a couple different people.
Mm-hmm.
So the first one is, does your work experience have to be related to the program that you've studied in Canada?
No, it does not have to be related to your program. The only time when I look at what exactly the degree was is on special work experience, where in order to work in that profession, you actually need to have a certain degree. For example, as a lawyer, you can't say, oh, I'm a lawyer, I worked as a lawyer, if you don't have a law degree, okay? But any other time, to qualify for express entry, to qualify for OINP, they do not look at whether or not it correlates between your work experience and your education.
Fantastic. Elizabeth, can you go over when an individual needs to stop working at the end of their program?
Right. So this has been an area of confusion for a lot of people. In fact, even IRCC was once confused because they actually told us one thing before and then they reversed it a few years later. Okay. So the policy of IRCC now is when you finished your program, when you first received the earliest time that you've received the notification from the school, whether or not it's an email, whether or not it's a letter, whether or not you've received your transcripts that said you have met all the requirements of your program, that date you have to stop working because on that date you stop being a full-time student. Okay, and then if you qualify for the post-grad work permit and you apply for the post-grad work permit, then you can start working again because as long as you have your study permit, as long as it's within 90 days of your graduation, you can start working if you applied for your work permit.
And what about if someone is doing a second program of study?
Yes, that's right. So that is one of the exceptions to the rule that I first said you have to stop studying. If you've received an approval for your program, for the second program, and you finished your first program, then you can actually work full-time as long as it's not over 150 days.
Okay. What about, so turning then to the post-grad work permit, how do we calculate the length? So how does a student know how long their post-grad work permit will be valid for?
Yes, that's a very important question because oftentimes, an academic year is not necessarily equal to a calendar year. Oftentimes, an academic year is equal to 2 semesters, which could be 8 months, for example. But it's equal to an academic year because you're not including the summer break. So it can often be very important that the letter that you receive from the school states how many academic years your program actually is. If you have a 1-year academic year, you get a 1-year work permit. If you have a 2-year academic year, you have a 3-year work permit. But a lot of it is how the officer decides that your program is for. And that can be different from the actual calendar days.
Okay. And if someone has failed a course during their program of study, how does that affect the length of the post-grad work permit?
So that can be very interesting because if you failed a course and you need to redo it again, it could be that you might need to be a part-time student for the next semester, right? And so in those kind of cases, it could be a little bit difficult to get your post-grad work permit. Now, my advice to you, if this happens to you, is when you do that other course, maybe you can add on some electives, so that you can try to be a full-time student. Try to do whatever you can to be a full-time student. But if you can't, then you need to provide a very, very fulsome explanation as to what happened with immigration. So, we've done that for some of our clients and we have been successful, to explain it. But certainly it's not 100% sure thing that immigration is just going to grant it to you if you say, oh, I failed a course. Okay, so you have to provide very fulsome explanation and reasons why, and to show that you did try to be a full-time student.
So what I'm hearing is that it's really important to be a full-time student throughout your entire program.
Yes. Maybe I didn't emphasize that enough. But you have to be a full-time student.
So the takeaway today, be a full-time student.
Yeah.
One last question, Elizabeth. Can you explain what a high-skilled position is?
Yes. So the immigration rules define high skilled as work experience that is under NOC codes O, A, and B. So the NOC, the National Occupation Classification, they have classified what they feel is all occupations under 5 categories. O, A, and B are high skilled, C and D are low skilled. Now, what your work experience is, it may not fit exactly into one of their descriptions. You just have to find the best one that it fits under, because if you are applying under any of the categories that I talked about, under the economic categories, you do have to define what the code is that corresponds to your occupation.
Perfect. And if someone wanted to get or better understand what options are available to them, what would you recommend?
Certainly, you have our information here. What we are providing today is not immigration advice. It's immigration information, general information. So you have a sense of what you need to be aware of. But if you would like to come to us and really understand your actual plan, please feel free to email us or call us and set up a consultation. Thank you so much, Zia. So that ends our presentation for today. But Michelle and Monica, are you there?
Yes, we are. Yes, we're right here.
Wonderful. Over to you guys for your. I am so excited to learn about how to help my clients improve their IELTS because this is one of the main questions that people have. So this is going to be great.
Thank you so much, and thank you everyone for staying a little bit longer. We have great information about IELTS. So as many of you know, we are IDP and we're IELTS, and we're the co-owners of IELTS. And what we do is we are leaders in international education services, and we're here to answer some questions about IELTS and to tell you more about how you can get better scores. Now, just quick things that you need to know about IELTS. We actually are accepted by over 10,000 organizations around the world, including universities, employments, as well as governments of Canada, New Zealand, Australia, and the UK. We in Canada have more than 150 test locations across the country. And of course, right now, due to COVID-19, not all of them are open. A lot of them have been mandated to close down for the time being until the province where we are opens up. A lot of times IELTS might be taken at a school, so the school might be closed right now, but please keep an eye on our website, IELTSCanadaTest.com or IELTS.org to find more updates about when things are opening up again. Now, if you have booked a test or if you're thinking about booking a test, please contact the test center where you have booked or planning to book in order to obtain more information about when the available test date is or if you need a refund. Okay, so let's get talking about IELTS. There are two types of IELTS that you can take, either a computer delivered or a paper-based IELTS. What are the differences? Really, there are very few, pretty much two. One is how fast the results are available to you. For computer delivered IELTS, as the name says it, you are going to be taking the IELTS on a computer, and you will receive your results between 5 to 7 business days. Now, if you take paper-based IELTS, again, as the name says it, it's going to be on paper. It will take up to 13 business days to get the results. Now, both IELTS are exactly the same. If you take an academic or a general IELTS, the listening, reading, writing is the same. Speaking is still being done face to face. You go into a room with examiner, you have this conversation with them. So you're not speaking into a computer. You don't have other people around you talking at the same time, getting you maybe confused, maybe getting you to lose your train of thought, or maybe someone coming to tell you, you're being too loud. Now, also the other difference is the availability of the test. With computer delivered IELTS, there are a lot more test dates that you can choose from. And when you're choosing your IELTS test date, you're gonna be able to see whether or not the test is on computer or on paper. So that will help you decide what type of IELTS you want to take, either on the computer or paper-based. Also, if you are faster typing on a computer, then go for the computer deliver. If it's paper-based, you don't like typing, maybe you only type with your thumbs, you're better at handwriting, then go for the paper-based. But remember to make sure that your handwriting is legible and neat. That's very important. Now, the format, a lot of you may have already taken the IELTS test or are already planning practicing on taking the test. And we have talked about here, Elizabeth have mentioned the type of scores that you need. So for immigration purposes, for example, you're gonna need a general IELTS of at least 6.0. And that, what it means is a competent user. That's the minimum that you need. But remember, minimum is not the one that takes you out of the pool, as Elizabeth explained, but it just gets you in. 6.0 or higher, maybe a 6.5, a 7, 7.5. That's what's going to help you have a better score. Now, the test is divided in 4 sections: listening, reading, writing, and speaking. And each session, it is timed. The listening part is approximately 30 minutes, reading 60 minutes, writing also 60 minutes, and speaking 11 to 14 minutes for 3 parts. Now, there is an academic IELTS and there's a general training. It depends on what type of application you're making that you're gonna take an academic or a general training IELTS. If you are applying for immigration purposes, you need the general training IELTS. If you're applying for a school program, you most likely are going to have to take the academic IELTS. Now, if you have taken the academic IELTS already and you're applying for your immigration, you will need to have the general IELTS, so you will need to take that. These tests are pretty much the same in structure. What changes is the contents of it. Now, in order for you to prepare, how do you prepare? How do you get ready to get that 7.0, 7.5? Well, usually, we have done some research talking about how long does it take for someone to have a band score higher when they live in an English-speaking country. And this research has taught us that it takes approximately 3 months. Of course, there are many things that take into consideration those 3 months. One, that you are self-disciplined, that you do your training every single day, that you practice, that you are watching things in English with different accents as well. So some of the things that you can do, we do have free and paid practice tools. So we're gonna give you here a list of all these practice tools that can help you out. One is a familiarization test that you can do on your computer. This can be either for a computer delivered or paper-based IELTS, because it gets you ready to know the type of questions that IELTS is gonna ask you. And also, it helps you time yourself. A lot of times writing might be a little bit hard because you have to think on the spot. So by testing yourself, by doing this type of familiarization, it's gonna be a lot easier for you to get ready and prepare for the IELTS test. Now, this type of practice does not give you any feedback. It is up to you to take a look into, okay, was that good, was not bad, I don't know. We do not give you any feedback on that. It's just for you to train yourself. Now there is another type of practice is IELTS Masterclass. This is for free. It's a 90 minutes seminar, webinar that we give every week. You can sign up, and here is a link that you can see. I'm sure we can share this afterwards, so you don't have to hurry up and copy all of the links. We will be sharing them with you. And you can sign up for free for this masterclass, and you can have answers straight from an IELTS expert. And I think here is a small video for you.
There's no sound, Monica?
Oh. Oh, sorry, there might be no sound. I can hear it, but it will help you understand the criteria of the IELTS test. And again, as I mentioned, you will have a contact with someone on this webinar who can answer your questions. If you're not able to be on a live masterclass session, you will be able to download and watch previous sessions as well. Now, something else that we have is for those of you who have already registered for the test, you will get a link for a free preparation by Macquarie University. It's called the IELTS Masters. This is something that every single person who books a test with an IDP IELTS Center will receive. Okay. Now, because there's no sound with the video, I'm just going to skip the video. Now, the IELTS Progress Check. This is a paid tool that will allow you to practice all 4 sections of the test: writing, reading, speaking, and listening. Now, this is something that you can do at home. It has a price of approximately $57 plus tax, depending on the province where you're in. So it will come to around 63 Canadian dollars. Now, once you finish the practice test of all 4 sections of the test, you will receive in approximately 5 business days an indicative band score. You will know how you're doing right now with your level of English. Now, you can purchase this for either academic or general IELTS. Again, this is really good for you if you are at that 6.0 level and you want to get that 6.5. You've been studying so hard. You took the master class. You are doing the free familiarization test. You have been reading a lot. You have been practicing. This is the time to take this test. Pay for it. Do a little bit of time yourself, and then you see how you can improve that to the 6.5 or a 7.0. This report that you will receive, it will have a detailed feedback for you. Okay, we also have the same for reading and for writing, but only for either or of these 2 sections. So you can pay approximately 35 Canadian dollars for either a reading assistant or writing assistant. It's the same thing. You will do a section of the reading or section of writing. You will receive information and feedback on how you're doing and help you improve in those sections. Okay, so again, we have a lot of free practice tests on our website, so we encourage you to go and visit them and practice them. A lot of them are free. The only ones that are paid, as I mentioned, are the IELTS Progress Check, as well as the IELTS Reading Assist or Writing Assist. Now, there's a lot of different more support tools that we have for you. And these are book lists that you can download from our website. You can read them. You can go over them. You can take a look into how we can help. Also, you can go on our YouTube session and listen to different types of tips. There are also some samples of the speaking portion of the test, so you can familiarize yourself. Again, it's a test, guys. So for a test, you need to prepare yourself. And preparing yourself is not only sitting on a computer or reading one time. It's actually sitting yourself for the 3 hours, timing yourself, I'll give you an example. I had someone who had come to me, a native speaker, who said, I took the IELTS test 3 times. The first time I didn't study at all, and I didn't get what I needed. And then what happened was that the second time didn't do the same. The third time, the person only studied 6 hours before the test, and they did not get the result they needed. And they are an English speaking person. And you may think, well, if it's an English speaker, they're gonna get the results. They're gonna get an A right away. Well, that's not the case. Everyone needs to study. So here are these tools for you, for listening, for writing, for reading, for speaking as well. Get familiarized. And something else, you can sign up today for our IDP IELTS preparation kit that it's, again, free. You can go into this link. Again, we're going to send you all this information later on, so you have it in your email because you did sign up with us. So we're going to be able to send you this information. Get access to our blog, get access to our IELTS tips, to the progress check, to all this information, all these practice tools that we talked about today. So this is very important. And remember, those 3 months, you know, you might be able to accelerate right now. If you're at home studying, you know, you have some time, get that time to do that extra IELTS test practice online. Okay, and I'm going to pass it on to my colleague Michelle to talk about the student placement part of things.
Thank you, Monica. And thank you everyone for staying on. This IDP is, as Monica mentioned in the beginning, we are leaders in international education and international student placement. Some of you may have heard about us in your home countries. So we have offices in over 30 countries around the world where we help international students apply to come and study in Canada, Australia, the USA, New Zealand, and the UK. So what we're doing in Canada, this is very recent, but as of last year, we actually launched our student counseling services here. And we are helping international students already in Canada extend their studies. So a lot of you come here for a one-year program, or people who might be interested in extending their studies, extending their stay in Canada. As we've mentioned in this presentation earlier, Elizabeth mentioned as well, the length of your postgraduate work permit is dependent on the duration of your studies here. So if you are looking for a longer postgraduate work permit, you might want to consider applying for a second program. And if that is the case, we are here to help you. We charge absolutely no consultancy fees. Our services are free. We've got 5 counselors on board who are experts in helping you apply and get in stress-free into a college or university of your choice. IDP is an official recruitment partner with 90+ educational institutions across Canada. This would include language schools, universities, colleges. So again, if you or anyone is interested in extending their studies or stay in Canada, we are here to help you. We also host a number of events, online events, as well as physical fairs where you have the opportunity to come in and meet schools and, from the comfort of your home, talk to them about what are the best programs for you, are you eligible to get in? Speaking of fairs, we are actually having a fair tomorrow, not tomorrow, on Saturday. It's a virtual fair, given it was supposed to be a physical fair, but given the situation right now with COVID-19, we've actually turned it into a virtual fair. We have all of these schools that are participating. So you would have the opportunity to come in and meet with them, just like we are meeting right now in a Zoom session. You'll be able to meet with them and discuss, your admission with them. So this is a great opportunity. We do still have a few spots available. So if you are interested, you can give me a shout via email, and I'd be happy to register you. Again, just wrapping it up here very quickly, do stay in touch, keep in touch. We are available, on you can follow us on Instagram. We're available on WhatsApp. We're available on the phone. And so again, wherever you are, whatever you decide, if you are looking to extend your studies, you can reach out to our counseling team, who also happen to speak many different languages and can assist you in your own language if that's what you prefer. So this is just our contact information for Monica and myself. Our email addresses are here. We will be sending out the IELTS pack to you so that you have all the links available and you can register. But if you have any other questions, either about IELTS or about student placement services, feel free to reach out to us at any time. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. We hope that you continue to be successful in your endeavors, and we're happy to help you if you need our help. Okay, stay safe, guys, and stay healthy. Take care.